In this concept video, we're going to be talking about types of discontinuity. So let's talk about maybe a function that's continuous. Polynomials are continuous. In other words, if you drew the graph of a polynomial, you wouldn't have to pick your pencil up or your pen up from the paper to draw it. Discontinuities are going to occur when you have a part of the graph where you do have to lift your pencil up to draw it. In other words, for some reason, two or more parts of the graph are not connected, if you want to think about it like that. This first one is an infinite discontinuity. There are three main types you can see here. So an infinite discontinuity occurs where you have a vertical asymptote here. That discontinuity exists, and we call it an infinite discontinuity because as you travel along the graph, you'll have to go down to negative infinity before you try to then go up to positive infinity to draw the graph again. And so you can't draw this graph without picking your pencil up. There's a discontinuity here. It seems like x is equal to 2 for this one. Notice how even if this graph were to go up and these ends look like they got really, really close together, they wouldn't actually touch. And so that would also be an infinite discontinuity. You want to look at what the graph is doing right along this asymptote right here. Point discontinuities are sometimes called removable discontinuities. If this point wasn't here and there was just a hole, we would just call it a hole. In this case, though, it appears as a point has been moved or it's removed from the graph, and so we call it a point or a removable discontinuity. Notice for this one, we just have one small value that we need to put a point at up here. We skip over this one and then keep going. So here there's no vertical asymptote. When there's just a point that's missing, we call it a point discontinuity. This is a jump discontinuity. Jump discontinuities can occur for other functions, but usually they occur with piecewise functions, so when we piece two or more functions together. A jump discontinuity occurs when a graph ends, or at least part of the graph looks like it ends right here, or stops I should say maybe, and there is a gap of a set distance. With an infinite, that gap would be infinity. I mean, you'd have to go down for a very long time, but here there's just a set gap, and it looks like it's maybe a unit and a half or something like that. So when you have to jump from one piece of the graph to the other to continue to draw it, we call that a jump discontinuity.